Um, Good afternoon or good day to you, and from welcome to today's webinar. I want to first of all welcome our panelists. I want to thank them for their time. We really appreciate you. Like I always say, we can't pay for your time, but like we said, the philosophy guiding the webinar is to find a link between the research world and the town where we meet, how some of our researchers can get to the outside wall of our four walls of our university, and other people can access it beyond the journal publications we do. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank our attendees who are just joining us. I want to thank them for their time. They have really been joining us. One of our panelists is joining us. I have to change him now. Kayode is joining through. I'm sorry, I have to work on this. He's one of our, and he's joining as attendee. That means you won't be able to say anything to. So I want to thank all those of the attendees, Femi Oyeniyi, John Akinyo, Osi, and others who are. Adegoke Adetura has been our regular attendee for all the webinars. We want to thank you for your time. Today we have with us Professor Bukola Oyeniyi. We have so many Oyeniyi in the house actually. We have, and I'm unfortunately related, seriously. We have Dr. Senayon, Olaoluwa Senayon. Professor Oyeniyi joined us from Missouri State University in the US. Dr. Olaoluwa Senayon is joining us from University of Ibadan, Institute of Strategic Studies. He's head of diaspora studies. We have with us Olusegun Olowu. He's a director in Bank of Canada. He's joining us from Toronto, Canada. We have with us Mrs. Toluwalope Oyeniyi, who is not related to Professor Bukola Oyeniyi. Who's joining us from Babalawa University. You're all welcome to today's webinar. Like the previous message, we are expecting 2 other persons to join us. The 8th person that we should be expecting, Mrs. Adefunke Awusokare, will not be joining us today because of some personal reasons, which has to do with health. So we want to we appreciate him. We appreciate our cause for all our support. Today we want to discuss migration. We want to discuss the greener pasture dream and reality, the self and the migration decisions. And what informed this is that whether we like it or not, migration is part of human history. People from one place to another, for one reason or the other. Although COVID recently has restricted people's movements from different parts of the world, even within the same country, there has been ban or restriction of movement. But then, with that as it may, we are talking about migration, and there have been issues that have resulted from migration. People have attacked other people for migrating to another place, which they call xenophobic attack, problem, which is we have that in South Africa. We have people being attacked in Israel. We have people attacked from different parts of the world. People are living miserable life or migrating for wrong reason or at the wrong time. Some have migrated and they discover that they are not even useful in their environment. They found themselves having to live a life they never envisaged. People have they've left their country with good qualifications and found themselves that the qualification they have is actually not important or needed where they migrated to. There are a lot of issues. People have migrated as a visiting person, and then they decided to live permanently where they have temporary permit to visit. So all these are issues that have with migration. But at the center of this is the self, the person, which has created lots of problems as a result of such decisions for themselves, for the family, for the group they represent, for their future, and a lot of other, even for the law. So the question I'm asking our panelists today, what is it about migration that it has become almost a burden, and what we should all be happy with? So I will start with Professor Bukola Oyeniyi. Professor Bukola Oyeniyi, if you are ready.
Yes, yes.
We have 10 minutes. 10 minutes. The 10 minutes starts now. Please.
Thank you very much, everybody, both panelists, the organizers, and listeners. Migration is an ancient issue among mankind. Starting from hunter-gatherers, we moved to civilized societies where we gathered and have all kinds of system of government. So it's not a new thing. But when we look at contemporary migration, we can trace its history. During the colonial period, if we limit it to Nigeria, Nigerians and by extension, Africans move for educational reasons, for trade to different parts of the world. And even during this period, when different areas were open up to trade, open up to different things, people began to move from one local community to another, most especially as it relates to issues of economics. That said, today we are experiencing a totally different situation, a situation whereby a huge number of people, irrespective of their education, are solely interested in leaving Nigeria and going abroad. However they define this abroad. For some, even Ghana, just some hours away from Nigeria, is abroad. Libya is abroad. Almost everybody is just simply interested in doing one thing: to live abroad, for abroad. And I find this very, very interesting. I got it from the UNDP, United Nations, whatever. UNDP examine or generalize the issue of factors underlying migration to two key things: expanding human capabilities and human functioning, which I think is very, very important. Almost everywhere we turn, people move about solely because they want to expand their capabilities. They want to move away from areas of lack to areas where they have multiple opportunities so as to achieve their goals in life. Let's be honest with ourselves. These are lofty ideals that anybody can travel or can live for. But a whole lot depends on a number of things, 5 of which I'll call our attention to. When we talk about migration today, as far as the history of Nigeria goes, we can trace the history of this mass migration of skilled and unskilled people to a policy introduced in Nigeria on June, if I remember, June 27th, yes, 1986, Structural Adjustment Program. This program brought about mass movement of highly educated professionals from Nigeria to United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and the Gulf states. And let's not forget, how did we get there? The problem of structural adjustment program has its own history, and a lot has been written about this. So we don't need to bother our heads tracing this history. But just like a snippet, structural adjustment created a situation whereby highly skilled individuals found themselves being paid pittance and a huge number of them just mass migrate. We call this brain drain, largely because it drained Nigeria of the expertise. People who are trained with our money, with national wealth, who enjoyed all the best of education, they just mass migrate due to situations at home. So this push and pull factor overseas, they could market their skills, market their education, get the best for what they have. And this situation began to draw others who continue to found the economies at home, the jobs landscape at home unconducive. There's a situation whereby people who have migrated, this first set of migrants, they are doing well abroad, they are doing fine. So it began to draw a huge number of people, that lure of let's go abroad, life will be better abroad. These people have gone, they came back and they are doing fine. So people want to go there. But what we find today is that we now have a situation whereby this so-called abroad, you need deeper understanding of what is going on there for you to achieve your migration dream. And part of what you need is not just a question of what's the knowledge that I have, what's my skill. You need knowledge about the landscape of where you are going. Visa categories play a huge role in what will become of you. No matter how educated you think you might be from Nigeria, if you don't have the requisite visa that will grant you a life, a meaningful life over there, certainly your life will be miserable. And these are facts that people need to understand, that as we go on, we can, because I don't know whether my 10 minutes is gone, we can deal with this as we go on when I have further opportunities. What I have in mind is to use the case of the United States. I have before me all the types of visas that United States grants to outsiders. I don't want to use immigrants now. And what these visas connote for them in the United States. Not all these visas allow anybody to have a life that is in the head of migrants. Like I said earlier, I don't know whether my 10 minutes is gone, because in the course of talking, you lose track of time. But as time goes on, I can come back.
You still have like 2 minutes more.
2 minutes more, thank you. So let me run through briefly the classes of visa that United States grant. We have A1, A2 visa, which are diplomatic and foreign for diplomats and foreign government. We have A3 visa, domestic employee. Then we have B1, B2 visa, the most common type of visa that most Nigerians are carrying, thinking that they have visas. These are for business visitors, domestic employees, academics, researchers and students, tourists and people for medical treatment. These two classes, B1, B2, allows you to enter the United States. Beyond that, you don't have a life. You don't have a life. You cannot have any recourse to public funding. You can't go to a hospital. You can't even buy anything on credit. You have to produce cash to acquire. You can't even open a bank account. Imagine a situation where a Nigerian who perhaps had a master's degree in Nigeria got a B1, B2 visa and move over to United States, thinking that I will just disappear. Life will be okay for me. Once you get here, you can't open a bank account. You can't even buy a telephone line. You cannot walk. Why? Because the visa itself was just meant for a visitor. And here in the United States, you cannot do any job without that your class of visa determining what you will become. So we also have C1, C1D visa. This for transiting through United States. People get it and get into the United States and run away. We have E1, E2 visa for treaty traders. We have F1, M1 visa for students. In this case of student visa, students are allowed to work 40 hours a week. 40 hours a week. And they can only work within the university, within the institution. What that simply means is that they cannot work outside. And come to think of it, how much is cost standard living wage. How much is it per hour? If a student gets, I don't know, if you can get $10 per hour, if you have $10 per hour, what does that mean? It simply means that that $40 per hour cannot even pay your rent in a month, let alone fuel your car, let alone feed you. So some students will think, oh, once I get a student visa, I can easily go out and work. You cannot work. You can't do anything. Beside that, we have G1, G4 visa, which is for employees of international organizations. They had their own organization that is bringing them there, and that's the class of visa they get. G5, domestic employees of G1 and G4. Those people that have G5 cannot even work. Then we have H1 to H3 and to H4. H1 visa, that's the visa that I got because I got my job right from Nigeria. My wife, we met at the University of Ibadan. We carried the same certificate from the University of Ibadan. The certificate that I got from Ibadan, with which I was employed, cannot even get my wife a job because I have a H1, she's carrying HB. I have H1B, she's carrying H4. So that's class of visa allow her to become my dependent. Now look at it. If you have a family of 4 or 5 people, you are the only person working with H1B. The rest are carrying H4. Your kids can go to school. Your wife cannot go to school because of her class of visa. She cannot work because of her class of visa. What that simply means is that you are working, you are feeding 5 mouths. Who are your dependents?
Okay, Prof.
You can't do anything. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Dr. Senayon. Dr. Senayon, you want to begin from here, please?
All right. Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
I would like to continue from the reference to the historical experience of Nigerians in 1986 with the commencement of the implementation of the structural adjustment program. What it has done to Nigerians, and much of my illustration will be drawn from Nigeria, understandably, is that it has led to the collapse of institutions. And when institutions collapse, there is a scholarly insight that it will result in 2 things, either of 2 things. People mobilizing to protest, sometimes even violently, against the collapse, so there can be a restoration of sanity in all spheres in order to make the institutions work again. That is usually something that is a long-term plan, something that even when it succeeds, can also record casualties in a devastating way, because it calls for a lot of organizing and all that time and all that. And then you discover that not an average person would want to participate in such. So what the majority of people do is to simply, like it said, vote with their feet. Voting their feet means walking away, literally migrating to other spaces that are perceived, as it were, to hold better opportunities. And that is why we must ask ourselves, why is it that the mass migration that began from the late 1980s has not stopped, has not let up? Instead, it keeps on expanding to a disastrous extent. We also saw what happened a couple of years ago in Libya. We've seen the continual attack on South Africans, on Nigerians in South Africa, and we've seen so many other things happening to Nigerians in the Gulf states. Now, here is my point. The collapse of institutions that began in the late 80s led to desperate migration of Nigerians to other spaces. And for that reason, migration or mass migration or the average model of Nigerian migration in contemporary times is one that is done without dignity, meaning there is a certain measure of dignity that accompanies the decision to migrate in the first place. Because like the first panelist just said, I mean, migration is natural to human history, but there should also be a measure of dignity to it. When you migrate without that, clause of dignity, there is the tendency then to face all manner of hostility and rejection in your destination country. And that explains why everywhere Nigerians go, they face a lot of opposition, they face a lot of persecution. Now, what am I driving at? It then means that in the case of Nigeria, as well as that of so many other African countries, there is something abnormal about the kind of migration we are witnessing, much as we have established that migration is natural with human history. How do I mean? Let's take the example of South Africa. Of course, we are all familiar with the history of that nation. Apartheid itself functioned in a rather, let me say, diabolical way by running an effective system, an effective institution that discriminated against blacks. And during those decades, because the institutions didn't favor the black, they had to disperse to various parts of the world. So they were victims of persecutions, and then they did all they could, mobilizing support and all, to be able to reorganize the society in a way that would be disposed to granting some sort of equality to all races. And so multiracial democracy was instituted, and South Africans began to return home. Between that time and now, I am not saying that South Africans still don't migrate, I mean in the post-apartheid era, but you are going to realize that you cannot compare the migration of South Africans in contemporary times to the migration of Nigerians, Kenyans, Ghanaians, and other people. Why? Because the institutions work and work well compared to what we find in an average African country. I'll illustrate further with the experience of a couple, a South African couple. Well, the man was actually, or is actually a Nigerian, married to a South African lady, and eventually they took a family decision to spend their vacation in London. And so the family traveled down to London, alighted at Heathrow and began to drive into the London metropolis. And then the next thing, the wife, this South African lady, called the husband and said, "Hey, darling, and when are we getting to London?" And the husband said, "Oh, come on, honey, we're already in London." And the South African lady was like, seriously, are you kidding me? But it looks like a village. Now, imagine that. A South African lady referring to London, the metropolis, as a village, because it cannot in any way compare with, say, the Sun City or something. or Johannesburg in terms of, the infrastructure and all the road networks and all. And so in a situation like that, we discovered that you are going to find that desperation to leave South Africa, exhibited by South African youth. So a Nigerian pastor, for instance, visited South Africa once and was ministering and the usual stuff, and began to, tell South African congregation that in no time your visa to the US will be issued. And nobody said amen. In no time you have your visa to the UK. In no time you have your visa to Dubai. Everybody was quiet in the church. Later that day, this Nigerian pastor checked with his host. That said, I was praying about visa for a member. Somebody said amen. And the host said, you know what? South Africans have no basis to desperately seek visa out of their country. That is what happens when institutions work. So basically, in addressing this, I think we also have to engage how it is still necessary to confront the institutional challenges that we have, so that there can be, we can restore the dignity to our ways of migrating. And not only we have done that, we are going to run into all manner of challenges, because this desperation has stripped Nigerians, especially the Nigerian youth, of what I call cognition. In a recent research that I did for UNESCO, part of what I emphasized with together with my other colleagues was the question of cognition. The person traveling is not even able to recognize and appreciate his work in the homeland in the first place. And so it does a business that fetches in something that is in the neighborhood of about $2,000 a month, yet he concludes that he's living a very, very miserable and unfulfilled life. And then into selling. Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, but it's really, really getting fainter. I mean, it's not as clear as possible. But we will come back to you. Have you made,
Okay.
the 10 minutes is it's clearer now.
Okay,
it's clearer now.
All right. So,
Yes.
okay, can I just round up? Have I taken my 10 minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
No, just round now. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Now, so what I'm saying in essence is that there's the challenge of cognition. So people who are interested in service cannot even determine whether what they are worth in the first place. So people sell off their stuff, give $5,000 equivalent to some agents who then, begin to take them through the Sahara. And by the time they realize they have been beat, they are already slaves, and all that, and all that, and all that. So these are the challenges, and the cognition issue is not only about the self, it is also about the location, the homeland space, as well as cognition about the lack of cognition about the destination country. So these are some of the challenges, and of course, when I have the opportunity again, I'll be able to discuss this further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Senayon, Olaoluwa. Wonderful contribution there. But maybe your gesticulation and the way the mic was moving, actually rubbing something, and it's really making some creaking noise, like disturbing your contribution. I hope we are able to do that, but when next we are going to talk, because you really make wonderful contribution. We have online. We have online now Dr. Kayode Adegoke. Okay. Dr. Kayode, you want to say hello to the other panelists?
Yes. Good day to
fantastic.
everyone. Good day to. Can you?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, that's great.
They are hearing you, and the attendees are hearing.
All right, I'm so happy to join you guys. I've been listening. Professor Bukola, thank you so much. And Dr. Senayon, thank you so much. I'm so thankful to you, Ademowo, for bringing me into to this. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. We'll come back to you, Dr. Kayode. I would like to go to Olusegun Olowu. Can you pick it up from there? Let's.
Thank you, Professor Ademowo and other panelists. I think just to start off, this is a really important topic for today, and also, you know, as we look into the coming years, it's going to gain even more prominence. What I would like to start with is just talk about, you know, why migration itself is important. And I think Professor Bukola and Dr. Olaoluwa have kind of set the tone in terms of what's driving a lot of people, you know, from an individual level to think about leaving their home countries and migrating into other areas. And what comes through is the fact that the principal driver is the failure of institutions and also economic factors. So I would like to look at this from two perspectives. So one is the national reason that enables migration. So why do countries like the US, like Canada, like Australia, like the UK or other European countries, even Asian countries, encourage migrants to, you know, migrate into their spaces? And then talk a bit about the individual factors as well. So what are the other things, you know, individuals think about when they are considering migration? So I think first and foremost, at a national level, the reason is twofold. One is economic. I live in Canada, and I'll use Canada as an example. So if you've been following the news, in 2019, Canada did make an announcement that they intend to bring in about 1 million migrants over the next 3 years. So between 2019 and 2021, Canada wants to bring in 1 million people from other countries in the world. The question is why? Canada is the largest country, second largest actually, by landmass, so there's lots of space. But when you look at that size of a country and the population, Canada is about 36.5 million people. And what we have realized is if you look at the OECD countries, Canada is one of the fastest growing among those countries economically. And the reason that underpins that is because Canada has made itself an attractive space for immigrants to come and work and develop. So certainly, Canada benefits hugely from having people from other countries come here. The story is not different in the US. So if you think about Australia, you know, is also a very attractive country to immigrants. They make it easy for people to come, and not just anybody. They are looking for highly skilled professionals. And by attracting these folks, you know, into these countries, they are depriving home countries of the benefits these individuals, you know, may have afforded to their own respective countries. The other factor is an interesting point, which is around the demography of these countries. A lot of the developed world have a population that is aging. And by that, I mean you have a large proportion of people who are closer to retirement. So that energy, that power, that labor force, you know, to drive economic activity is declining. So on average, if you look at countries like the US, if you look at Australia, if you look at Japan, we're talking about the median age being at about 40 years, you know, plus or minus 40 years. In a country like Nigeria with roughly 200 million people, our median age is 18.1 years. And that tells you a lot. So close to 60% of Nigeria's population is youth. That is a lot of power. That is a lot of productive energy that other countries want to tap into. However, they don't want just anybody. They want to cherry pick, you know, who they bring into their own land. At the individual level, it's about a number of factors. Skill mobility. So I'll use India as an example. India has done a fantastic job of creating an environment that churns out people who are highly skilled in technology. But despite having 1.2 billion people, they don't have enough, in terms of companies and organizations to absorb all of that. So India has positioned itself as a country that produces, talent that countries like the US, like Australia, like Canada, the UK tap into. So if you were to look at Silicon Valley, in Western US, and look at the cadre of professionals you have there, a significant proportion of them tend to be immigrants. So at an individual level, skills mobility becomes really, really important. Can I leave the shores of my own country, go elsewhere, learn, develop, and become more internationally competitive? If the Nigerian community, the Nigerian environment is not affording me that, it creates incentive for me to want to, I believe it was you, Dr. Olaoluwa, when you said, to vote with my feet. The other factor is globalization. The world is becoming, it's more or less a global village. So right now, we're all in different locations. We're all having a conversation as if we're in one room. And, with improvement in travel, say for the disruptions we're experiencing now with COVID-19, moving from one location to the other, has become so easy. I live in Toronto. The US is barely an hour away, if I get to my car and drive. It just shows, how easy it is for people to actually move and, work in different locations. With remote working today, I don't have to be in this country to do my work because I work from home, and I've done that over the last 2.5 months. I very well could be in Lagos and be doing the same work, fully productively. So globalization then means, because some countries have a comparative advantage, and countries have also learned that you can't specialize in everything. You can't develop everything. So lots of Nigerian academics, move to other countries of the world to, not just learn and share experience, but to also develop those other countries. So that's one other important factor I think is worth talking about. Finally, there is what I will describe, broadly as social migration. People move for family reasons. So people who have moved years ago have got family here, who have told them the story of, that fantastic lifestyle they experience. It's about quality of life. It's about healthcare. It's about the things, good roads. It's about infrastructure, the things you probably miss back home. And people, get attracted to that and look for opportunities to either join their families, to be in a perceived better place, depending on how you look at it, and to experience what I call, potentially a better quality of life. And there are a number of pathways for people to migrate. And I think it's worth talking about that, really quickly. So education is one. Academics like Professor Oyeniyi, for academic reasons is moved internationally. Skilled workers, across different sectors. I'm a banker, I'm a strategist. I moved to this country. I used to work as a management consultant, where I moved to Canada and I work with a bank here. So nobody looks at me and says, you don't have the skills and experience you need to do the job. So long as you're skilled, whatever sector you are in, there's always that opportunity to move overseas. Healthcare is probably the most popular one. Doctors, so if you go into a typical hospital in the UK, you have lots and lots of Nigerian doctors and nurses. Same in the US. Engineering, people in professional services, accountants, auditors. Those in technology, I think there are lots of people who work at Twitter, Facebook, Google today, who are Nigerians, South Africans, Indians, people from all over the world. And beyond skilled labor, we also need to talk about unskilled labor because there's also migration among the unskilled. Farm workers are people that, go to other countries to actually work. And we don't tend to pay a lot of attention to those kind of people because, but you think about it, in the US, during planting season, you have lots of people coming from, Central America, Latin America, and even other countries to come and work in the US. It's a seasonal activity, which is why you sometimes hear people joke, about Mexicans coming to actually till the soil in the US. It is a reality. It's the same thing in Canada and other countries as well. You have plumbers, you have even housekeepers, nannies. So it's common knowledge that, in a lot of homes in the US, nannies come from the Philippines to come and actually, do that kind of work. And then you've got investors as well. And beyond all of these, which are categorized as, regular migrants, they're the what I call the irregular ones, which are those I think we talked about, who come in, either come into the country illegally or who arrive legally, like Professor Bukola talked about, on a visitor visa or your H1, H2 visa, and then overstay their visa, thereby becoming illegal. And then the third are asylum seekers, who try to come under the guise of, whatever challenge they may be facing, but whose, asylum applications get rejected and then refuse to leave the country. And, it's important because this is a growing number. And I recall as of last year, thinking about the Canadian situation, Nigeria as a country had more pending, refugee protection claims in Canada than any other country globally. The next country on that list was India, but the number of people from Nigeria, was double that of India. So, and this kind of situations lead to countries pushing back, like we've had the US try to, clamp down on visas for Nigerians. So I think as we think about migration, legality is very important. And we've also got to recognize that there certainly are lots of opportunities, but there are also pitfalls. And I hope as we further this conversation, we will talk about some of those. So ongoing legality is one. The fact that migration offers you no guarantees is another thing to think about. It can't be rosy and it can't be not rosy. You've got to think about that. You've got to deal with change. You've got to deal with change. So cultural change, language change. A lot of folks I talk to tell me, oh, I speak English. Yes, there is Nigerian English and there is British English and American English and Canadian English. And these are all nuances that come into play when you move into a different market. You need to learn how to navigate that. There's culture. There's a workplace culture. How do you fit in? Are you employable? Can you be an entrepreneur in that environment? Can you actually play in that space? Local understanding, super important. And we also must not forget that racism is still a thing. So even Black people who live in the US, in Canada, other countries of the world, have to deal with that challenge of both conscious and unconscious bias. It is a real thing. Okay. And as an immigrant, this is something you would have to also deal with.
Shegun, we'll come back to you. Thanks so much. We'll come back to you. Mrs. Toluwalope Oyeniyi, it's your turn, please. We know, like Olowu said, there are different sides to this movement, which the migration can be rosy, can be a big problem. So what's your own contribution, your own view on this, please? You have the floor, Mr. Oyeniyi.
All right, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate this opportunity to share my own thoughts on this topic. Thanks to Professor Ademowo and to other panelists I've heard their views so far. So considering migration, like we say, we have different types of migration. It could even be within the same location, that is the same country. We're talking of people even migrating from the rural area to the urban area. And basically, why are people moving? They move because of some reasons. Okay, we talk about the pull factor, the push factor. Something is not right. That's why they're going to another place. And the other place they're going to, they believe they're going to have some important things to benefit. We'll talk of students who desire to have a better education. Considering our system in the Nigerian system, it's actually failing in some areas. Education, you want a better one, you want to move far away to another country where you can have a better education. So for people, they have different reasons why they are moving. And like Dr. Olowu has also, Dr. Olusegun Olowu has also said, he talked about the economic factor. And the economic factor, looking at the standard of living in the country at this point in time, it's not really looking too well. And with what is going to happen within the next few years, considering all that is happening right away, we will realize that migration is going to be something that will still keep happening. Then in this, looking at this issue in that particular order, people have to be aware that while they are moving, they need to understand the reality they're going to face there. We have this greener land dream of going to make money, of going to get there and get money and all that, but we need to understand why the place you're actually going to. Professor Oyeniyi has actually mentioned that they need to understand the country they're going to before they can make the good use of what they're going to get. So look at the story of a young lady who actually, a young writer, Cameroonian writer. She migrated to the US at the age of 17. She talked about her story. She's a Cameroonian writer. Her name is Mbolo. I checked her story out, and she actually wrote a fiction novel like Behold the Dreamers. This was due to her experience, what she saw when she got there. She had this kind of dream, like, okay, I'm going to the US. This is what I've been seeing on the show, on the media, watching Beverly Hills and Cosby Show. I see US as a big place where I can make it and all that. But she actually went there as of age of 17 to attend college. She was sponsored by a family member. On getting there, she realized that, she said at first when she got there, she remembered she met a friend going to visit someone, a family member, another family member, and she went out with the person. The person wanted to open her mailboxes, and she saw the person bringing out letters, and she was like, "Wow, you're famous." Famous? I was like, "Why did you say? You have a lot of letters there," not knowing that it's actually bills. She just said, the person told her that these are famous. These are bills. Like, wow. So this is what I'm going to be faced with, like bills. I'm going to. That she imagined everything, like this country is going to be something, I'm coming to get the money because we see a lot of houses here when we watch the Beverly Hills show and the Cosby shows and all that. So I expect that America is going to be somewhere I'm going to come here to enjoy, to make my money. She said the reality now dawned on her that this is it. So I have to be paying bills before I can. So we have to struggle before we can make ends meet in this country. And she felt like, even in our country, we still manage. Yes, I'm coming from a poor country, but I realize that we still have people who are the communal living is still there. Hardly will you find people just sleeping around. But she said she was shocked to see that people are homeless because it's not easy getting there and making your own ends meet. So you struggle with 2 jobs, 3 jobs. Even as a student, you still have to work so that you can be able to finance some other things. So this reality dawned on her, and I looked at the fact that novel, she had to write it. And so what I'll say it this way: it's not for people to just say they want to migrate. Understand the landscape, the country you're going to. Learn, try and look at things that happen around there. Try and understand what that country is all about. I also this also leads to what the issues we're experiencing now, talking about racism. I'll cite the example of my younger brother on getting to US, going for his PhD. Remember the state he got to, the state is actually he said most of the citizens there are actually white. First Sunday going to church, he was approached by a woman. The woman said, "How did you manage to get here?" Like, came to him right one-on-one. "How did you manage to get to this state?" It was like he was shocked. Why, as a woman, we don't have blacks around here. What are you doing here? And it felt like, how am I going to survive in this town? But so it depends on the person. You have to really understand where you're going to, and you have to really be sure you're going there to be able to face everything that is going to happen. So for him, he took it up and said, no matter what, I'm going to survive in this country. He's there to spend 5 years, and to God be the glory, is on the 4th year. And he has to also get roommates, staying with 2 other roommates who are actually white, and he's able to survive. So it's going to be something for an individual who is going to migrate. You have to understand yourself, you have to understand that you're going to face so many things, and build up yourself to say, this is how I'm going to deal with it, so no matter what comes my way and how. So, and looking at the issue of migration also, one way or the other, we say with most of the countries people are moving to these days, I feel everybody, the US is already saturated with so many. People should look beyond you look beyond USA. You can have other continents where you can make ends meet, where you can actually contribute your own knowledge and be able to also gain in return. So it's not all about people moving over there and say it's US, you're going to US is already saturated, and with all what is happening, people should tend to look towards other countries and continents where they will be relevant. And like Prof has also emphasized, and Dr. Olowu and Dr. Senayon, you need to migrate with dignity. that dignity is important. Like we see the way a lot of people have lost their life in the course of crossing the Mediterranean Sea, the deserts, all in the name of we want to go to abroad. It's not just abroad. Going to abroad, what are you going to do? What do you have to offer? How are you going to contribute to that society you're going to? How are you going to survive there? You should understand what is happening in that terrain before you say you want to go there. So it shouldn't be about people saying they want to migrate without having that skilled knowledge, what they are going to contribute to that society they're going to, so that they don't end up in the prisons, because by the time you don't have what you're going to do, you end up doing committing crimes that will make you to end up in the prison. So people should always they should always understand why they are migrating, and understand your terrain to a very large extent. I think I'll stop here for now. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll come back to you. I just say pause for now. We'll come back to you. Let me quickly go to Dr. Adegoke. Dr. Adegoke, are you there? Dr. Adegoke. Dr. Adegoke.
Yes, I'm here.
Dr.
I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Good. Let me ask you, what's the place of storytelling in migrational dream? What is the place of storytelling in migrational dream? How has that eagerness to leave the country? What is the place of storytelling in some of these migrational decisions? Dr. Kayode, you have the floor. Dr. Kayode Adegoke. Dr. Adegoke. Dr. Kayode Adegoke. Are you still with us? Dr. Kayode, back.
Okay, I can hear you again now. Do you mean storytelling?
Yes. What is the place of storytelling in migrational decisions? And these dreams, wow. The dream of some of these people. All right. Just make your presentation. Make your presentation, please. 10 minutes.
Okay, I can hear. All right, I can hear you very well now. Very good. I can hear you now. Now, when we talk about storytelling in migration, we are talking about greener pastures. That is it.
Yes.
I hope everyone can hear me, because I don't know, the internet kind of. Yeah, we're talking about the illusion of greener pastures. I don't know if anybody if you can hear, if anyone has come about that in literature, the illusion of greener pastures, and that's what everyone has talked about here today. There's an illusion of greener pastures. That is what encompasses the storytelling, the dreams of migration all over. It is not peculiar with Nigeria. It is just about the lawn is greener on the other side. That is it, which is usually very narrow and simplistic. Because I can tell you, based on statistics, even theoretical statistics, practical ones, that people who migrate from Nigeria, from Africa, from anywhere to Europe, to America, to North America, to Asia, are well off, well educated. They are usually the best of stock from their host countries. If we take off refugees, even in refugees, you realize that they are usually the most well educated. They when it comes to economics, their value economically to their country, to wherever they are going, are well off, considering the cost of the journey. For instance, for anyone who has migrated out of Nigeria, you know what it costs to even migrate. There are so many people who cannot even afford such lifestyle, so economical lifestyle in Nigeria. They cannot migrate. So the story is all about, I want a better life outside. And I know that when I get there, it's going to be better off for me. And everyone keys into this. It's easy. And then there is the illusion that virtual lifestyle brings into this thing. Usually human.
No, Dr. Kayode, we're having problem with your audio.
No.
Your audio connection. We're having problem with your audio connection, sir. Dr. Kayode, we're having problem with your audio.
Yeah.
Dr. Kayode, we're having problem with your audio. The audio is bad. We can't hear you. We can't hear Dr. Kayode. I'm about to go to Professor Bukola Oyeniyi now. Dr. Bukola, Dr. Kayode, you need to fix your audio. We know you are saying something. Yes, of course. The inner pasture is an illusion. And that is why sometimes we can't hear you very well. This is the problem. We can't hear you. I'm have to cut off because of the recording. I'm sorry. Please, can you fix it, please? Dr. Kayode, please. Dr. Bukola, please.
Yes.
Can we consider that illusion, please? Dr. Kayode unfortunately has a bad network or has network issue. I was asking him about this storytelling and migration. I realized that when we were growing up, there's so much story about people that come back from abroad and people living there, that a lot of people would think that when you go abroad, you push the dollars from the streets and take big power everywhere. Because in movies, you just see somebody pick another person's car. And everybody just hold the same car. What is the place of this illusion in this mad rush for our youth and other people to migrate?
Thank you, sir. Humans in general, we love stories, most especially because it allows us to process reality. And nice stories with happy ending tends to fascinate. So we should not be surprised that migration is driven largely because of stories. But to be honest and to be candid, stories like this are grand illusions. Let me share a couple of experiences, myself, others. The first time I walked in Europe was in Bucharest, Romania. I was there at the Institute, New Europe College, Institute of Advanced Studies. When I was going to Romania, even at the Romanian embassy in Nigeria, the question was, why are you going to Romania? What are you going there to do? I was shocked. I got to the Netherlands and immigration were asking me, why are you going to Romania? If you are resident in the Netherlands, what's taking you to Romania? I became somehow uncomfortable. So when I go to Romania, it's as poor as you can imagine. Bucharest, the equivalent of Abuja, and I was super thrown off balance. Houses were largely unoccupied, some as bad as you can imagine. But who will take photographs in those areas? When I was taking my photographs, I went to nice areas where manicured lawns, and those are the photos I sent home. And before I realized I was fueling that wrong narrative, almost a year is gone. Now, I did one thing before I left Romania. I went to all those bad areas to take photographs. I began to post them on Facebook that it's not all rosy. I live here in Springfield, Missouri. And just as Mrs. Toluwalope said earlier on, you get to some areas in America and you'll be asking yourself, these are homeless people. For crying out loud, this is not a third world country. There's a street here in Springfield, Missouri, Nicole Street. Oh my God. Ebutemeta is cleaner, better than this street. I remember when I got here in 2013, we were just going around, driving around just to know the city. And my kids were telling me, Dad, these people should go to where they came from. I said, no, this is their country. I said, no, it's impossible. Nobody will tell you how bad most of these countries are. I'll go back to the case of New York. My first visit to New York was to talk at one of the state university network. And I was there. I saw nylon bags on the street, rats crossing the road at breakneck speed. Those rats so maneuver their ways that you can't even kill them. And these are big, big roads. And the place is so dirty, stinking, that I asked myself, how could this be New York? How could this be? That was in 1999. I was so shocked. I said, no. Who has done this to us? That we saw America from the Hollywood perspective. Illusion created and recorded on video, and they projected it to us. Don't get me wrong. There are areas, even here in Springfield, that are so exotic that if you think of paradise, those areas are paradise on earth. But how do you take advantage of these good stories, balance it up with the bad ones, and come out fine? That's the purpose here. It's not to discourage anybody. I love what Dr. Olowu said earlier on. It's beautiful when you have skill to advertise. It's okay. Everybody wants you. That's why they have Visa Lottery. That's why they have all kinds of programs. But who were those programs targeting? You mentioned something about Mexicans working in farms, and they added an important thing that most Nigerians will not pay attention to. And that's why I'm going back to it. Those are seasonal jobs. They lasted almost on a yearly basis for 4 months. Then what will happen to you after that 4 months? For another 8 months, what will you be doing? And that's why Trump is on everybody's neck. All immigrants are just like animals now, that you just shoot them and kill them off. But that's not the point. The point here is that, like I mentioned earlier on, you need to understand your migration destination. You need to know labor laws. You need to know what are the laws guiding employment and which type of employment are open to you. I'm glad we have people from different areas here. Here in the United States, jobs like in Europe, like in Canada, like in all these developed nations, jobs are meant for citizens. So it's not automatic you are going to get a job when you get overseas. Another important thing Nigerians don't know is the fact that your education, your skill, they might be marketable, they might be desirable, they might be anything you can think of. Once you get into this America, North America, Europe, your skill had to be readapted to suit their own situation. When I got this job, my first 1 year was like a hell on earth. I asked myself, what brought me here? I had a good job in South Africa. Why did I come here? The students are different. The In fact, they say things that you don't even know what they are saying. To now readapt yourself to this kind of environment, you need a lot of patience. You need a lot of education. When I use the word education, that is retraining yourself. So if you are stuck in your ways, you are not going to be successful if you migrate. So the stories of migration, how it's driving wealth, how is this, they are grand illusions. Nobody should take them as anything. They are just mere photographs. You caught a particular moment in time and you fixed it. If you post that on Facebook, people will, this is fantastic, you're enjoying life. But that's not the reality. Go on the street and you see what it means. I was telling my younger brother in 2014, he called me, bro, my car is bad. Can you just send, I will find money to clear it. And I started laughing. How much is my salary? And you're asking me to buy a car and send it to you? Say, hold on. I paid $1,000 every month rent, no utility rent for my house. And he said, no, you are not in Lekki now. That is 1 year for 1 year rent. I said, very good. The cost of 1 year rent is what I pay monthly. Oh, people talk about internet, the growths are good. All these things you sweat for them. How many Nigerians will pay 35,000 naira for internet a month? Let's face it. And when you sit back here and you keep chatting with people, you are paying 35,000 naira every month to keep that internet going. Nothing is free. People think it's free. No government gives you anything. If you are immigrant, I love the case of United Kingdom. It's even written on your pass or your visa. No recourse to public fund. That is, OYO, you are on your own. Once you enter any of these countries, you are on your own.
Okay, no problem, Professor Oyeniyi. Professor Oyeniyi, we'll come back to you on that case of OYO. Dr. Senayon. Please, Dr. Senayon, please. Dr. Senayon.
I am in a
Yes.
and I wonder why Professor Oyeniyi will end his intervention on a note of Oyo. Anyway,
Yeah, because you know your state.
Excuse me, are you from Oyo?
No,
You're
she's
not?
in Oyo State.
What are you talking about? I grew up in Oyo town. I grew up in Oyo. So I'm an Oyo man.
Right now. I am in Oyo right now.
So,
That's all right. Talking about stories. I find that dimension fascinating because I've spent all my years trying to understand stories. Having come from a literary background. And for that reason, I am going to begin with illustrating with Samuel Guide's collection, When It No Longer Matters Where You Live. This collection is very, very important because it was published at the turn of the 21st century to offer a kind of satiric intervention on, the the media hype about globalization. So it does appear that it no longer matters where you live because of the internet connection and all other things. So you can live in New York and connect with your mom in the village and in Nigeria, and you're fine. And on the basis of that, so many people are deceived into leaving their home states in a hurry. For United States of America, where they think they can speak dollars, on the streets because of the projection they have from Nollywood and all. That is what we call the effect of simulacrum in literature. And so, ultimately, they land in the US and in other places and discover that they were not well prepared for their migration. And so, I am saying this precisely because now it has become necessary to address the question of storytelling or the narrative that we generate around the discourse of migration. And I think the Nigerian government, through the Nigerians in the Diaspora Commission, is already beginning to do something about this. Can we find a way of reorientating people? Can we find a way of admitting members of the Nigerian state who are planning to travel out of the country, who are planning to migrate to other countries, to educate and enlighten them regarding what they are likely to encounter as they leave the country, so that it is not always about this circulation of deceptive narratives and stories that end up putting people in very, very difficult and awkward situations after they have left the nation. I once had a friend, unfortunately he's dead now. We had trained together in Angola, read English. She was doing well as a banker in Nigeria, and then she won the US visa lottery. Shortly thereafter, she wrote me to say, you know what, Senayon, I'm moving from English studies into nursing because the story she had was that all you needed was a wage. That in the US, you had to spend the blood money. It flowed better than oil. And I said, hey, sir, what's this oil money? Are you telling me literally? He said, no, just going into nursing, makes all the difference. And so nothing became the same thing. He had to return to school, do the equivalent of Nigerian tutor to be qualified to register for nursing. And she was on the street for many years, struggling to pass the exam again and again. By the time she died, unfortunately, the younger brother told me, you know what, the most painful aspect of all this is that my sister died not having a qualification that the equivalent of ordinary national diploma in Nigeria. The money, the right money, she never made. Precisely because she got into the wrong circle as soon as she got to the US, and that story became a disaster to her life. So, what I really mentioned is that the stories have been there, and they have wreaked havoc, distracted to many. But can we also begin to look at how we can engage institutions, public and private institutions, to start reorientating, start a new kind of orientation for intending Nigerians and Africans who would want to embark on migration? Thank you. Then,
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Sen, thank you very much. Let's quickly, before we go to Olowu, we should return to Dr. Kayode. Dr. Kayode Adegoke, can you hear me? Dr. Kayode Adegoke, can you hear me? Okay, let's take one or two contributions. I'll read from Andrew Akimoyo. It says, sir, Dr. Senayon. Oh, your voice is not loud enough, of course. There's a question from contribution from Bosi Olatubosun. Bosi said migration control can be traced to 1918, when Israel passport became one of the major provisions of the wartime measure of the War Act of 1918, making it a criminally punishable offense to travel to the US without a passport. Fast forward to 2020, in many of the OECD countries, migration is now both economic and political issue where the left and right do take definite position. Considering the political and economic instability of uncertainties in developing world, it is clear where the jurisprudence of migration will swing. An important issue for policymakers in developing countries, therefore, is how they take advantage of the migration of their highly skilled workers to the developed world in order to leapfrog in a world where the market got highly skilled capital is fast becoming seller's market. Now, that is a policy. Oludare Joshua Oyebode, Engineer Oyebode, asked a question, and that is to the audience. What is your advice for employers, youth, and leaders in the country on the issue of migration, job satisfaction, and excellent decision making? And that's those are questions. Does anybody want to talk? I want to see if there's anybody that wants to contribute. Somebody from home. Okay, I can do you raise his hand, but he's not there. So we will go to Olusegun. Segun, what do you have to contribute to this story, the storytelling angle to the greener pasture? What's your contribution?
I think a lot has been said already, by the doctors who spoke earlier about the importance of storytelling. And I think if you think about social media today, I love the example, Professor Oyeniyi shared. You only tell the good stories. Everybody struggles, whatever country you are in. I won't share stories of my struggle on social media. Everybody wants to create that illusion of success because that is the brand you want to create. And that is what all countries do. And when you talk about, huge rats, running across the highway in New York City, I kind of know what that means. And I think for us, part of the purpose of this conversation really is to just give that reality check. Personally, I think migration is important because it serves a purpose. But like Dr. Toluwalope Oyeniyi said, clarity of purpose is super important. Knowing what you want to do and what you want to get out of it. It's important to emphasize that, if you talk about homelessness, prevalent in many developed countries, there is a lot of poverty as well. I use the U.S. is always my case in point when I talk about poverty, because in recent times, in other discourse, I've talked about, poverty being, almost as bad in the U.S. as in some parts of Nigeria. It is that bad. There are cities, in fact, there are parts of the U.S., if you've read about Flint in Michigan, they don't even have clean water. You have states that, that have gone bankrupt. You've got, areas where people don't even live. There are homes there, but they're dilapidated and nobody can live there. It's not livable. But this is all, all part of that developed world. And I think it's the same narrative, because when we think about it, a lot of people in the developed world look down on us as Africans. And it's because of the story that's been told about Africa. So if you've been unlucky, someone may have asked you at some point, have you ever, hunted lions? Do you live in huts? It's a story that's been fed to them. And the story that has been fed to us through movies is what we think the US is. Glorified mansions in Hollywood, but, it runs a lot deeper than that. And if one chooses to make that decision to migrate, I think we need to understand there is a lot of hard work and struggle involved. And overall, it is a huge risk. It is a huge, huge risk. And once someone has that reality check, it helps just ensure you're focusing on the right things. What I would say is, for anyone thinking about migrating, and I know lots of Nigerians are, there was a piece of research done by, I think it was Pew Research a couple of years ago. It was global, but they did realize that close to 45% of Nigerian adults surveyed, said that they plan to move to another country sometime within the next 5 years. That is the highest share of any country surveyed globally. That's a lot. And it goes back to the point around people have heard good things. They think it's automatic, it's guaranteed. Once you step into another country, you are made. But that's not the truth. You know, it takes a lot of hard work, it takes a lot of pain, it takes a lot of change. And dealing with that has cost a lot of people their mental health, it has cost them their wellness, it has cost lots of people their lives, in fact. So it's important to think about who you are getting information from. So I like to use the example of, you know, if you want to get rich, if you're taking advice from somebody who has made it, you know, you can trust the advice you're getting. But you don't get advice on making wealth from a poor man. You know, may not be the best example, but I think it illustrates, you know, what you want to do. People listen to lots of other people who have painted a rosy picture to them, and then they get misled, and then they have to learn the hard way. So I think overall, you know, just knowing that adaptability is really key, and that ongoing legality is one pitfall that sets a lot of people up. You move overseas, you know, legally, and then you become illegal, and then you run into trouble. And then things start from there. Just ensuring, one, you have a plan, and know upfront you're taking a risk. There are lots of opportunities back home, but that said, thinking about how many Nigerians live overseas, we cannot play down the importance of migration. One important point I would like us to also talk about as we go on, and I'm going to wrap up here, is the importance of remittances, you know, coming from foreign countries back into Nigeria. That is something that also, you know, maybe shapes that story as well. Nigeria probably had about, I think last year was about 6% of our GDP. So roughly about $25 billion US was remitted back to Nigeria from overseas country. It's a lot, which shows, I call it the black tax, because you live overseas, you struggle, it's hard, you know, rent is high, cost of living is high. You actually pay through your nose for everything you have. But at the same time, you've got to look back home and send money back home. And for a lot of people, because that happens, and because Nigerians generally have a good heart, people think things are really, really rosy. But the truth is, it is not. I'm going to hand it back to you, Professor Adeboke.
Thank you. Dr. Kayode, you are trying to join us a few minutes ago.
Yes.
Dr. Kayode?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
Please.
Is
Thank
it clear now?
Go on. Clear. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof. Ademo. Olusegun has said it perfectly well. I don't know if we can reiterate the advantage that Africans have in the diaspora has given to Africa as a whole. Despite what we've been talking about, despite how rigorous it is, we have talked about two things that are very important to migration here. Legality, number one. You want to make a difference, you have to know why you are going out. Aside all the illusion of greener pastures that I talked about earlier on. I don't know if anyone got that. So
we don't get most of what you said the other time. That's the truth.
Oh,
we didn't get it.
Oh, so sad. So sad. Yeah, I was talking about the illusion of greener pastures, and I know that most of our panelists would have talked about that too. That was what. So there's no need of going back to that again. I'm sorry that I don't know if it is the internet or because I joined late. So Dr. Olusegun just said it. Legality, how it affects your migrants, how it affects our life outside, the lifestyle we're going to live, whatever we planned as a migrant. So the advice we want to give here going forward is the legality, how it affects, how the greener pasture, the illusion of greener pasture, we do not allow that to affect our aspirations as a diasporan. You want to go out, you got to understand that you need to dig deep more than all what is painted on social media, in the news, in the movies. All these our musicians, the Nigerian, upcoming musicians that have gone out, that shot their videos in South Africa, in Canada, in the US. You want to make sure that those illusions you see are beyond them. There are states in this South in America that you don't even want to be there. You don't want to go there. And they are not going to paint pictures of these places for us in the news, on the movies. They are not going to give us those stories. And that is the reality of branding. And no one is going to paint a picture of woes, of inequality, of poverty in the United States, in Europe. No one is going to paint it in the movies, in the on social media. So, and these effects has a great effect on the aspirations of Africans that are migrating. So, so if legality is cleared, if Nigerians know that I want to follow this route, like you want to go to Canada, you want to go, you either want to go as a student visa, you want to take the student visa route, or you want to follow the Canadian, you want to follow the experience route. You want to get a job from Nigeria, and then you can do your visa and have your work visa, which ultimately might lead to permanent residency. So these are legal routes with which you can get into the country. You want to go to the US, you follow the legal route. I'm very sure that most of the panelists will have talked about that. I think I had Dr. Bukola talking about the US route, how you can get in with your BH2, I guess, and then be able to work, and then proceed from there after some time into permanent residency. The same here in Canada. So you want to get into Canada, you want to make sure that you follow the route that gives you ultimately the opportunity to be able to gain permanent residency, which boosts your legality. And this is how we can affect, number one, how we can have, how we can boost the image, an African image. We don't want a situation where Africans migrate illegal. This affects the image that is being thrown back to Africa, number one. Then number two, it affects the economic advantage for the diasporans and then to Nigeria in the long run in terms of remittances economically. Like Dr. Olusegun just said now, like 25 million in a year, which has a significant effect on the GDP. So, and if you are not legal, a diaspora, and if you are not legal, you can't really sit down, work, and gain all these opportunities. Go to school, develop your market ability to be able to gain a good job, and then be able to remit such kind of money back home, and even live a relatively, profitable life as a diasporan. So these are issues we want to emphasize going forward. How we make sure that the illusion does not affect the desires of migrants, people who want to migrate. How they can see beyond the illusion that is painted on Facebook, that is painted on the movies, that is painted on music, that is painted on the news about North America, Europe, generally. So I think that is those are the things that affect migrations. And we do not have to forget that there are different kinds of migrations. We have corporate migration, we have trade migration, we have academic migration, we have cultural migration. People do not want to leave, move for different, for the general reasons. We always have different reasons for moving. And all this, in the long run, affect the mentality, the preparations, the cost, and then the legality of migrants in the diaspora. And then, hello, can you hear me? Oh, please, that's good. Okay. Oh, that's good. So, like I was like, so now when we talk about this illusion, how does it affect migrants? Generally, migrants are usually the best of stock of Africans living. They are the well-to-do, they were economically, academically, educationally, they are the well-to-do. It's so easy to find migrants who have gained a measure of education in Africa. Those are the people you will find in the diaspora because they can afford to go through the cost of migration. The cost of migration itself is an indication that Africans who migrate are usually the well-stock, the well-off in their host countries.
Good. Oh, okay, Dr. Kayode. We'll come back to you briefly.
All right.
Mr. John Akinedoye, you are raising your hand that you want to say something. Mr. Akinedoye, one of our attendees. Self-mute and say what you have to say. You have 2 minutes. Yes, Mr. Akinedoye. Mr. Akinedoye. Self-mute and say whatever you want to say. Otherwise, Mrs. Oyeniyi, she has anything to say. Obviously, Mr. Akinedoye, the only raise up his hand within minutes. Mrs. Oyeniyi, please, you are free to contribute. If I may ask you, Mrs. Oyeniyi, now in the case of, we have had cases of attacks of migrants, and we realize that there are so many factors contributing to it. And one of them has been highlighted by some of our panelists. What, in your own view, is the major cause of the attack on migrant community and even on migrants in the host countries? And how can we handle this?
Okay,
Okay,
sir. Thank you so much for the opportunity once again. So we are talking about the attack on the migrants in the
hold on.
All right.
Just 1 minute. I'm asking this question
Okay,
because one of the major agitations that brought the Nigerian Diaspora Commission on board with this former newscaster, Abike Dabi, as the chairman or the director now, is that Nigerians abroad are complaining of maltreatment. They're complaining about the kind of treatment being meted out to them, and the kind of and the problem is sometimes they don't tell the whole stories of how some of them pass through the desert, and we even realize that some Nigerians are involved in manipulating and in subjugating Nigerians to all manner of abuses. So I'm asking this question on the basis of that knowledge of some of the agitation that brought the Nigerian Diaspora Commission into a system. In your perspective, what are some of the key issues that we should talk about here?
All right. For me, I think one of the major things is that most of this host community, they realize that Nigerians over there are the ones taking most of their, they are the ones doing the job, they are the ones making the money. So they feel they need to send them out. So assuming we have a country, for instance, we have a country that everything is working, maybe not perfectly well, but at least to a very large extent, things are in order for us. The infrastructure, everything is working out well. We won't have a lot of people moving out. We won't have as skilled, our brilliant academics going over there to take up the positions. So these people see Nigerians or Africans as those ones taking the opportunity they should actually have. And this is why they are so against them, and they feel we need to send them packing. All right. So like one of the contributors said, was asking that what can be done about this job satisfaction thing. I'll give the instance of someone who felt, I have a medical doctor who felt this country is not really worth it. As I'm just talking about practical experience, like you're in a federal institution, they'll tell you that we need light for surgery, no lights. They have so many surgeries on ground, but no light to even perform those surgeries. So we have very minimal hospitals that we can say they run their light 24/7 and everything is working out perfectly well. And when we talk about migrant, it's all about having that self-reflection, that I want to be what I want to actually have, that full potential. I want to do this, I want to do that. So they feel the situation on the country for now, for Nigeria, for instance, we don't have that full capacity to bring out your ability, your potential. You want to do more, but that opportunity is not there. So that's why we have most of our skilled people. Those are the ones who feel they're even doing very well here. They're the ones moving over there. I look at that instance of that person I talk about, and like, you're a surgeon, why do you want to move? Like, he explained it, and I saw reason why you actually need to move. They are not comfortable here, things are not working well, I need to do more, I feel I'm underutilized. But it feels like if I go over there, I'll have the opportunity to make use of my talent to do whatever I need to do and make it. I have also another instance. I have a couple who are both academics, private, public and a federal institution. They have decided to, in fact, after this COVID, I'm very sure they are here, they are over there. And it's not even just US. They are going to the Oceania. They have secured the opportunity. They want to go, because they are first-class graduates. They are done with their PhD. They had the opportunity of doing PhD outside, but they felt Nigeria is not giving them what they want. So they need to go there. So, and by the time you now see these people that are actually very brilliant in other countries, they are the one taking those positions and they are making good money. So the citizens, the host community, like, why are these people always the ones making it? They're the ones getting the money. How do we? Then we need to send them back. They should go back to their country. So those are the things that are actually making that's that thing making the host community to be to want to be so racist about issues. So looking at South Africa, they tell you that the issues that happen there for the xenophobia is also the fact that they felt these people are really taking their society, they are making it here, so we need to send them back. And so basically, it's just about the fact that the Africans are actually moving. We have skilled people that are moving, and they are the ones making it over there. So that's why they're against them. I feel that's just about it. Thank you, sir.
Professor Bukola Oyeniyi. Professor Bukola Oyeniyi, is it a case, in addition to what Mrs. Oyeniyi has said, is this a case of envy against the productivity of Nigerians, or there is something about the host government that is not, doing what it should do for its citizens, that the citizens are taking it out on Nigerians, so that when we attack the Nigerians or some of these immigrants, we will know that we are suffering for this. What is your view on this?
Thank you. One key thing that we need to bring on board when talking about this issue of racist attack or racial attacks on immigrants is the fact that poverty, whether we like to accept it or not, has no color, no creed, no race. It abounds everywhere. Wherever you find immigrants being attacked, check the economies of such societies. They are under serious strain. And situations abound. For instance, in South Africa, under Jacob Zuma, immigrants are blamed for almost everything. Immigrants are blamed for almost everything. I was at the University of the Free State before coming over here to the United States in South Africa. I saw this almost everywhere you turn. It's not that people hated immigrants. It's because economic crisis set in and immigrants became the scapegoat. So the host nations, when faced with economic crisis of their own, inability of their political leaders to fashion out economic system that will benefit everybody, now led it to a situation whereby immigrants became scapegoats. That is true for South Africa. It's true for the United States as well. It's true for the United States as well. As far as United States is concerned, there are a couple of things that I want to bring on board. People see, and this is very important given what Mrs. Oyeniyi rightly talked about earlier on, relating to some of the examples she gave. People think that because I have a PhD, because I'm a medical doctor, I can just go to the United States. The landscape is changing as fast as you can think of. Today, I think I mentioned this earlier, Jobs are meant for citizens. Today, here in the United States, if an immigrant is to be employed, oh God, whether from back home in Africa or wherever you are coming from, countries of origin, or even if you are in this country already, the situation, the landscape has changed dramatically. I will use my own case as an example. I was in the Netherlands when I saw the advert and I applied. HNet. I saw it on HNet and I applied. I forgot about it. Went back to my Joseph Ayo Babalola University and was teaching. December, I got a call. Oh, you applied and blah, blah, blah. That was how I got here. Did the interview, came over for interview and passed. But one dramatic thing happened. I just saw an advert placed almost everywhere on campus with my face on it. I was so curious. This is my picture. Only to realize that the university had to advertise in newspapers that they wanted to give me a permanent job. And anybody who has anything to say should say it, and they were given 40 days. Nobody consulted with me. Nobody even informed me. How could you put my photos of my family members just like that in the public? I went straight to find out, said that's the law. It's not just that. It had to be advertised in national newspapers. Beside that, the Ministry of Labor now require that they have to show that there are no Americans who qualify for the job. So the advert that they placed originally was submitted, and now they have this 40 days window where people can comment. Now you should just wait. After that 40 days, the Ministry of the Department of Labor then can proceed. So when people think that, oh, I can easily come over here and get a job, it's difficult. Even when you are well qualified. I mentioned this earlier. No matter how highly educated you are, from wherever you are coming from, do not forget, you are coming into another landscape. Your certificate had to be now re-evaluated to see, and to see whether it is adaptable to this society. And that will explain why anybody who studied in America will easily find a job in America compared to somebody who is coming from outside. It's difficult. But be that as it may, Nigerians are known to be trailblazers everywhere. That I say with all pride, almost everywhere I go. In fact, this is how I normally frame it. Nigerians are known to even turn stones to water. That's how good we are. To be honest with you, that's how good we are. We endure, we persevere, and we turn things round. And everybody knows that. And that's one of the key reasons why Nigerians are sought after everywhere you go. I want to tell you a lie. I call it a lie because I want you to research and find out. More than 45% of doctors and nurses, whether in hospitals or teaching universities in Nigeria, in Canada, and even in the United Kingdom, are Nigerians. They are Nigerians. We have huge pool of people. When Donald Trump started lambasting Nigerians, calling Nigerians all kinds of names and all that, CNN, Farid Zakaria did something that made almost all Nigerians in the United States so proud. That even compared with Americans, we are the most educated. So if you are using education as a yardstick, Nigerians have it. But one of the key things, as we have talked about, is that we don't even know what opportunities are available to us. And just as Mr. Olowu rightly noted, it depends on who is giving you information. You want to be rich and you are talking to a carpenter, a roadside mechanic, you must be crazy. Talk to Adenuga, talk to people in the field. Those are the people who can give you information.
Thank you,
Let me
sir.
share this
Thank
personal
you, Professor
experience before I
Oyeniyi.
round it up.
Okay.
I ran into a problem. I lost my job, and I had, before then, I already bought I was coming for a conference here in the United States. I already bought my ticket. So I just told myself, why wasting my ticket? I'll have to go. So I contacted a friend. A very good friend. Say, oh boy, has happened. I'll come over to the United States and I will just run away. And he said to me, Egbon, two things are before you. You either commit suicide or you just go mad. They asked, what do you mean? I said, look, this is the situation. I am a student here. This is where I schooled. But this is how much I'm earning. This is the number of hours I could work. I have to do all kinds of horrible jobs to even feed myself. You are a professor. You've been doing this. You've been doing that. Now you want to come over here. Even if you do manage to get here and run away, for the next 10 to 15 years of your life, you will be finding a way to regularize your life. How do you think it will be? How old do you think it will be? So if you are 30, if anybody is 30-year-old in Nigeria today and is thinking of coming to the United States illegally, I'm telling you, two options. You're either going to go mad or you are going to commit suicide.
Only two things can happen.
Only two things.
Okay, problem. It can happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Senayon, your final, because we are coming to the end of the webinar. What you have 3 minutes to make your contribution. Dr. Senayon.
Yeah,
you have like 3 minutes.
I'm sure that's really like Professor Oyeniyi has said, I do think we come from another perspective because I'll be going back to the original question of why the facility for migrants and maybe we can always illustrate with Nigerians in places like South Africa and the US. I would like to begin with South Africa and to reinforce the point made earlier on by Professor Oyeniyi about what happens when citizens cannot find their expectations met by the state. Immigrants and migrants become the scapegoat. And that is exactly the case with South Africa, where during the decades of anti-apartheid struggle, the people, Black South Africans, were promised a welfare state at the collapse of apartheid. Mandela became president and was determined to implement that, if you like, model, that vision, the welfare vision. And in representation through the person of the vice president,
Dr. Senayon, can you reduce your gesticulation? If you can reduce your gesticulation, your hand, that would be good. Yes, you're making good point.
All right. And so, the welfare blueprint was eventually abandoned for a neoliberal capitalist system. And so, there could no longer be houses for all in South Africa, especially the blacks. There could no longer be food for all as originally promised in the days of the struggle. Unfortunately, the ordinary South African lacked the capacity to understand that it was the somersault in the economic policy that resulted in the inability of the ordinary citizens to access these originally promised welfare packages. So, to that extent, the mafia who left home in desperation to make it will become scapegoat. That is at one level. At the other level, I would like to refer to a new theory of migration I am working on at the moment. Made a presentation on racial last year at the University of Ibadan, and part of the publication is already online. And what I call late arrival superior aggression theory, LASA. When people move in the context of migration, and go into a new state. They tend to be more aggressive than the early arrivals. When they exhibit that level of aggression, the reaction from the early arrivals to the late arrival aggression to be very violent. And that is how to account for the number of xenophobic attacks we have against Nigerians and other Africans in South Africa. Because it is either they are taking our jobs or they are taking our women. Why the Nigerians take South African women? It's actually because they have been found by the women to be more enterprising, to be more hardworking, to be more caring. But you do not expect that level of economic aggression from an average South African male, because the orientation of a welfare state will remain within. These will be easy. And like you said earlier on about Nigerians being the most educated, being the most resourceful, immigrants in the US. That also comes with a message of backlash, because when kids are down, they are higher level of economic aggression. We also result in singling them out, for attacks, singling them out for voting whenever there was service. I'd like to stop here.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Dr. Senayon. Believe me, when next I'm going to that, you have to set this your mind. You are saying a lot, but it's fluctuating as a result of your gesticulation. Really.
I'm so sorry.
Really.
So sorry about
this. It's really clear. This is really clear now. So clear. You are using the front mic of your computer, and it's really, really clear when you are talking. But it's okay. We'll get it better. Passing short from Olusegun Olowu, your final thoughts.
Okay, final thoughts. I wanted to emphasize that when we think about migration, it's not all bad, and there also is migration between developed countries. So it's not always about my country is not working. It's people wanting a different lifestyle, people preferring a different kind of weather. I think what's important is just emphasizing that if we're going to get involved in migration, let's be clear we're doing it for the right reason. So to summarize, I would say there is always risk involved with migration, as there is with anything else. So let's be sure, if this is something we're thinking about as individuals, we are doing it right. So we're doing it for the right reasons, and we're also doing it the right way. So first and foremost, we talked about legality, and there's a bit of emphasis around that. That is the biggest challenge most people face when they migrate, staying legal. Avoid a situation where, you would fall into illegality, because that's where the challenge really, really starts. Two, also understanding that as the world is growing, there's a huge demand for certain kind of skills. So for someone who is looking towards migration, start to think about how you can build those skills. Lots of research is available publicly today that talks about jobs and skills that are required for the future. The world is changing. Technology is actually, disrupting the way we work, the way we live. And if you have the right skills, it makes it a lot easier for you to actually move legally. Research is super important. Seek information and ensure you're getting that information from the right people. And I believe where opportunity meets preparedness, it's going to set the individual up for success. And for those who ultimately decide to bite the bullet and move either from one city to another, because that's also migration, or from one state, within a region or, continentally, adaptability is important. Resilience is key, because it's always not an easy journey. And finally, I would wrap up by saying that we also need to understand that migration is not always or necessarily the right answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Dr. Kayode Adegoke.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, you're passing short, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the panelists, Dr. Bukola, Mrs. Oyeniyi, and Olusegun and Dr. Senayon. Thank you all for your contributions. Finally, I would say, like Dr. Olusegun just opined now, that it has to be legal. Migration has to be legal. From the Council of Westphalia, we already know that you want to migrate from one country to another, you have to do it the legal way. If you don't, it's no longer the hunter and gatherer generation where you can just cross borders and move anywhere. So it has to be legal. That is one. Then secondly, about the attacks that we talk about, there is the white versus black dichotomy. I'm not sure if we can overemphasize the racial profiling based on the skin pigmentation, color, the way white people see a black person. It is not necessarily all about we taking their jobs. We need to always remember that. It's not necessarily all about because we are taking their job. Sometimes it's just because you are black. Because there is that supremacist ideology that I am white, I am superior to black. That superiority within the color pigmentation, it also comes into play too. Therefore, we need a lot of orientation and education on the I don't know how to put it, how it is so nonsensical for humans to think because another person has more pigmentation than him, it means that he is superior to that person. That plays a lot of huge role even in countries that are well developed economically, like in Canada, in Germany, in Belgium, in states, in a locality where people are even where they are doing very fine. People still experience racial profiling. So we also have to look at that too and encourage a society that understands that humanity is same, whatever the pigmentation. And lastly, we cannot also overemphasize how our host country, Nigeria, Ghana, how our government has to do more in terms of developing the host countries, in terms of making life easier for people who live in the country. It is not going to stop migration, like we already said. Migration is just as natural as anything. People who are still going to move around, but people need to know that they have a government who cares for them, who makes life, living costs easy, electricity, water, these basic things. We have to encourage our government. We have to push more on our government, doing more for the people, such that we have a home country to be proud of. If we do not have a home country to be proud of, it has a detrimental image to migrations, to diaspora, to the aspirations of diasporans, trying to be whatever they want to be, wherever they are in the diaspora. So that is it. So those are the key things we need to, to also address. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Professor Oyeniyi, your own 2 minutes participation, please. Self-mute. You have to self-mute, sir.
Yes, I will take a totally different route to talk about, briefly, to talk about one of the key new development that we are seeing in migration studies that are very, very important for whoever is going to migrate and those who have already migrated to know. And one of the things, the only thing I will talk about is what we call de-skilling. We have situations whereby people are grossly de-skilled, and it's now bringing about even suicide, job satisfaction, people not being satisfied with what they are doing is commonplace across Western world today, and it's a big problem. You have a situation whereby people who are highly skilled find themselves in the diaspora and they're just truck drivers, cab drivers. They are waiting tables at bars. This situation has led many people, we have seen many people who just sank into depression. How could I? How could I? I am a graduate of the great University of Ibadan. I'm a graduate of OAU and what. We have seen people committing suicide on account of this. And this is very, very fundamental for people who have not migrated to know. Because if you get here and you are not satisfied with whatever you find yourself doing, you don't need to just sink into depression. You can take the easiest way out. Go back home. Buy your ticket and go back home. It's a reality, and we need to address it. And without people knowing that this thing is real,
that's true.
Without people knowing that it is real and it is out there, and it's one of the key things that immigrants are not telling people back home. I'm sorry, I'm not a devil's advocate, but the fact needs to be put out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
that
so much.
reality. It's really very important. At this juncture, I want to thank all our attendees. Thanks for your time. And to our panelists, Professor Bukola Oyeniyi, Dr. Olaoluwa Senayon. Thanks so much for your time, Dr. Kayode Adegoke, Dr. Someone just asked a question. Just a minute. I thought somebody said a question. I just want to pick the question. I think there's no need. We are done. So I want to thank all our panelists, Dr. Adegoke, Mrs. Oyeniyi, Olusegun Olowu. I want to thank everybody. It's been wonderful 2 hours, well spent. And I'm sure that definitely whoever watched this will find something, and those that have been listening will find something to pick. If any of you have any issue with me posting it on our YouTube channel, please do let me know. We can find a way around it. Otherwise, this will be on YouTube, on our YouTube channel in about a week or so. This doctor, I want to thank you once again for your time. Do have a wonderful day, pleasant day wherever you are in different parts of the world. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you.